Hi, today we're going to consider roofing materials and how I've slated the roof of the goods shed for Bexhill West. Hi, I'm James, welcome back. Well, I thought for this video we'd have a break from the CAD series and I'd catch you up with what I've been working on the Bexhill West project. So you see on your screen now a photograph of the roof for the shed and how I've achieved the slate effect. So what I wanted to do today was spend a little bit of time talking about slate roofs and the techniques I use to create them. And we'll focus our energies on this small lean-to extension on the side of the goods shed. Now this was the goods manager's office. And if we have a look at the photos, we could see that it actually has a mineral felt roof. However, I think that was probably replaced over time, and that when the thing was originally built, it was probably built with a slate roof to match the rest of the building. So let's jump onto the computer and I'll show you how I designed the slates. But first of all, let's talk about slate sizes. Now, before we get too far into talking about how we're going to go about creating this slate roof, I thought it was worth spending a moment discussing the sizes of slates. You see, for all sorts of reasons, some of which were geographic, slates in different parts of the country were produced at different sizes. In fact, you can go more or less anywhere in the country and find slates of all sorts of different sizes. But traditionally, a slate would be twice as long as it is wide. So, for example, what we have here, where I'm hovering my cursor, we've got a slate that's 8 inches wide and 16 inches tall. So these 5 slates that I'm showing here are 5 fairly common sizes that you can find around the country. This one here, which is 12 inches wide and 24 inches high, these typically would be found in the northwest of the UK. A very common and popular size was 10 inches wide by 20 inches long. But as I say, you can find examples of any of these sizes and others as well, pretty much anywhere. But I thought it's worth considering how big I was going to make my slates before I got too far into it. So just to make this drawing clear, all the measurements that you see in black are in inches, and the red measurements would show what those would scale out to at a scale of 4mm to the foot, which is what I'm building the Bexhill West project to. Now, just for your reference, I've chosen not to use any of these measurements, but I'm basing my slates around the 10 by 20 slate. However, I'm going to make mine 3mm wide and 6mm tall, simply because that's easy numbers to remember. So I have on my screen here the parts to complete the little roofing project that I'm about to show you. On the right hand side here I have a photograph of the real world parts. So this is a little piece of laser cut MDF, which will be kind of like the roof structure. And on the left of that is a photograph of the individual slates that I've laser cut from a piece of black card. So what I'm going to do is just delete that photo for a minute to reveal here is the shape, and what I'm going to do is just quickly try and replicate what we've got going on here, and I'll show you how quite quick and easy it can be. So the first thing I'm going to do is select this bottom line, and I'm going to do that by, I've grouped it all together, silly me, let me select just that bottom line, there we go. Now on this piece of software I can just click copy and I'm going to drag that down there. Now I'm going to make my slates 6mm long. So I'm going to use my contour tool, select that to 6. So this is drawing a contour, or sometimes in some software it's called offset or parallel. There we go. Now what I'm also going to do is do another one of those, which I'll set at 3mm. And this, if you like, will be the overlap we're going to have with each slate. And in addition, I'm going to draw in the ends of the run of slate. So bear with me, what I'm now going to do is zoom in. Now I'm going to try and use tools that I've shown you previously in the CAD series. So I realise we've only just got started really with the with the drafting of stuff, but I'm going to try and show you how it's all done on this piece of software, and the processes are similar on LibreCAD. So for my first run of slates, I want to put a slate and a half. So that is a slate that is 1.5 times a standard width. Now my slates will be 6mm long and 4mm wide. However, the end two are going to be a slate and a half, which will make 6mm wide. So I'm going to use my offset tool again, set it to 6. Now this will all make sense in just a moment. And that will be my slate and a half. All the remaining slates will be 4mm wide. So I'm going to set my control to 4mm. Now what I could do here is just trim away this excess line. Now it's slightly different in this software to that which I've shown previously in LibreCAD, but I did show in the last video how to do it. And there we go. And in fact what I can do now is delete that line. So I can come back to the contour tool and I'm going to work in from each side. Now there's a much quicker way of doing that, but I'm just going to do it slowly just to give you an idea. Now if I stop for a moment, if this was a real roof and we were slating it, we would begin at each end and we would work towards the middle. And eventually we would find, if I work side to side, that we end up with a slate that would need to be cut to fit. So just to kind of hopefully make this make a little bit of sense, these slates here are 4mm wide, but we end up with one here that is 3mm wide. Now that's just because of the length of the building that I've chosen. But we want any cut slates ideally to be in the middle, and this is the real advantage of making these slates yourself. If I'd bought, say, a piece of plastic embossed slating material, all the slates would be a standard width and I wouldn't be able to have this slate and a half at the ends, and I certainly wouldn't be able to incorporate what would be a prototypical cut slate in the middle. Anyway, having done all of that, what I'm going to do very quickly is copy this up. Now this isn't a tutorial sort of showing you how to do it. This really is just to kind of get you thinking about what you could be doing. And this time I'm going to have a standard slate on each end. And what I'll do here is I'll put that offset line back in, and I can trim these away. And I can take the offset line out now. Excuse me. So once again, I'm just going to repeat that process, and I'm going to come in from each side. Now there is a quicker way, and in time I'll show you the quicker way of doing it, but I'm just doing this slowly just to show you how, using tools that we've seen in LibreCAD, we could do the same thing. But what I'm going to do now, can you see that this cut slate is now offset from the one below, and we're going to have no joints that sit on top of each other. So let me try and make this make a bit of sense. What I'm doing here is I'm just taking all the lines in each strip of slates and grouping them together so that I can click on that and they'll all move as one. Okay, now if I hover this over the top of, whoops, excuse me, let's try that again. Let's hover this one, hang on, I've got some locks turned on, I've turned those off. So this would sit roughly about here. Let's nudge it sideways slightly. You get the idea. How one will overlap the other, and we'll get these perfect offset. We have no vertical joints in the slates above one another, which of course on a real roof would lead to water leaks. And you could see on each end how you need the slate and a half to get that sort of nicely finished edge. Now I have seen, so if I put an extra line in here, and then we zoom in to this corner, this would be the effect if we used half a slate along this edge, and really half a slate on an edge. I have seen it done, and in fact in preparations for making this video, I had a look around at some roofs and I've seen plenty of examples of where half a slate is used. However, if you have half a slate, you can only fix it right on the end of its sort of corresponding tile batten, if you like, and it's always at the edge of the roof where the moisture gets in and the end of the batten goes rotten, and before you know it, the half slates fall off. So if you're repairing a roof or putting a new roof up, it's always best if you can to use a slate and a half on the ends. And so that's what I've done with this model. So if I zoom back out and separate these two pieces, there we go. So it didn't take long. In fact, it's taken me longer to do it and talk about it than if I was just doing it from scratch. Now I've got those two there, I could copy them and then copy those again, and I could keep copying until I've got enough. Now if we come back to this drawing that I originally showed you, this is my drawing from which I laser cut my parts, and there they all are, and there's enough slates there to slate this roof. If I zoom in, hopefully you'll be able to see that there are some little gaps in these lines here that I've left, and that's just so that when I laser cut these from a piece of card, they don't fly around. The laser uses some compressed air as well as laser light, and the compressed air sort of blows away the burnt material. Well, had I not have put these in, then these pieces being made of card would just blow around inside the machine. So by doing that, I'm left with a nice single piece all ready to go, custom designed to match this roof. Let's have a look at actually making it. So I thought it's worth mentioning the adhesives that I'm going to be using. So the super glue is just generic stuff, that's there on the right hand side. I buy the bottles of it from Toolstation, I think, and it's cheap as chips, and I like to use it because it's nice and quick. But you'll see me using a glue stick, and it's worth mentioning this one, Tombow glue stick. I've only recently started using it and I think it's brilliant. Far superior to, say, a Pritt stick. In the past I have been using the silver coloured Power Pritt, which I find is not bad at all, but this stuff seems to be really good. Gives you about 2 minutes of working time before the stuff grabs onto card really well. So that's worth trying out if you've not seen it before. Okay, so what's going on here is I'm applying a line of super glue to where the bottom row of the slates is going to fit. And I'm lining that row up with the lines that I've engraved previously onto that piece of material that is the roof. Now using a glue stick, I'm applying a little bit of glue to that join or that line where that next row of tiles is going to sit. The wooden block I'm using just to press the material down as it glues. I could of course rub my finger across it, but I don't want any glue to ooze out and go on my fingertip and smear across the face of the slates. So this process now repeats. You can see I put the glue again where the next strip's going to go. So that strip of glue is half the width of the slates. So the slates themselves are glued to the wooden backing with super glue. But I use the glue stick over the back of the slates before I stick them down so that the card to card join, if you like, is made with the glue stick. And you can see the process. I find the block of wood is quite handy. I can use it to line the slates up with the end of the material, just like this. It helps me to slide them into place. Now the reason I do it this way with the mixture of the super glue and the glue stick is that when I lay the glue, the tile on just like this, I can slide it about a little bit because it's held off at the surface of the wood by the thickness of the slate below it. So as I glue each strip on, there's enough sort of compliance, if that's the right word, with the glue stick to enable me to slide these rows of slates backwards and forwards, up and down slightly if I need to. And then when I'm happy they're in the right place, I can use that block of wood on the back edge and press it against the super glue, and then the bond there is pretty much instant. So this way it gives me the confidence of the permanent nature of the super glue is definitely going to hold these things on. If they get a little bit damp, they're not going to fall off. But I have just that little bit of freedom when I fit them. Here we go, just lay it on. I can make slight adjustments and then use that block of wood just to press it down, So in case that isn't clear, as each tile goes on, it's being held off of the wooden backing material by the thickness of the slate below. So we've got a gap of, I don't know, 1/3 of a millimetre, something like that. So I can slide them about before pressing them down. Now the glue stick, you can see it sort of oozes out a little bit, and you can see that as I hold this up to the camera, you can see shiny bits where it sort of seeped through. But that dries up after a few minutes and is less noticeable. As you can see, we're just cutting the last couple of runs of slates off of the material I've got. And there we go, it looks pretty good. One more strip to go. Now this strip I'll stick on, obviously it's a little bit too long, so a little bit wider than the others, or rather I've got less space now. I've crossed myself there, I squidged a bit of glue out onto the surface of the tile, so that's going to take a bit of fixing. Anyway, I'll fix that last one on, flip the thing over and cut the remainder off from behind. So here you can see the final outcome, and it's not too bad. I'm a bit disappointed with that smear of super glue, but it's okay. And so here we go, this is sort of the first stage of weathering these roof slates. You can see I'm just using some Vallejo Game Wash, it's grey colour, and I'm just applying that with a brush. Now I think I should have shaken the bottle a little bit more, because this first application there isn't too much colour to it at all. And in fact, as I was filming this, I've got a bright light on it, and when I'm doing this I really can't see any greyness in it whatsoever. It actually looks a bit better as I'm watching this footage back, but basically I just brush in downward strokes. There we go, I'm shaking the bottle up there to try and mix it a little bit more. But I brush from top to bottom in the direction that the rain would fall. And you can start to see this is coming through now. So it's going on, and you can see that shaking it was worthwhile. So I've got a lot of grey on there. I'm trying to do this reasonably randomly. But cover the whole shape, cover the whole thing. And then you'll see me, I'll take the excess off on the brush in a minute on the piece of paper towel. There we go. I'll just try and take some of the excess off so it doesn't look too overpowering. Now this is only the first stage in the process, but it does enough to sort of take the blackness away from the roof and leaves a finish which is slightly more pleasing. Here I am just putting some red streaks under where I think water might run around the chimney as it comes down the roof. There we go. Well, I hope you found that interesting and hopefully useful. Now, obviously I've used a laser cutter, which does make this all a lot easier, but the same process could have been done with card cut by hand. It's no different, it just might take a little bit longer. Now coming soon I'll be doing a similar video but about tiles, and there's some of the differences between slates and tiles, and in particular I'll show where the laser cutter can be really useful, and I'll produce some of the decorative clay tiles that are typical of the sort of the southeast area where I live, and I'll show you how we can achieve some of the ornate patterns that exist on some of the buildings that we might be wanting to look at. Until then, the CAD series will continue. There's some more videos coming for that very soon. And thank you very much to those of you who've engaged with that series and have left such lovely positive comments. It's delightful, really, that so many of you have started to learn a new skill and are already achieving some success with it. So we'll keep that going, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Until next time, bye bye.